Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وخاتم النبيين صلى الله عليه وسلم. In translation, we seek refuge with Allah from Satan, the rejected enemy, with Allah's name, the beneficent, the merciful. All praise is due to Allah. We seek His aid and His forgiveness. We seek refuge with Allah from the evil of our own souls and from our own misdeeds, our own sins. Whoever Allah guides, no one can lead him astray. And whoever Allah allows the free will to go astray, there's none that can guide that person back. I bear witness that there's none worthy of worship except Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant, messenger, and the seal of the prophets. First of all, before I talk, I do want to thank my brother-in-law Moni for inviting me to do this talk. Anytime I'm invited to talk about Islam, I feel honored. But the topic that I was invited to discuss is on the concept of Khimar and hijab and the terms of modesty. So basically, what is Khimar? First of all, Khimar has been known as a head covering, right? Pertaining to women. But the word Khimar comes from three root letters: Kha, Mim, and Ra. When you have these three root letters of Kha, Mim, and Ra, they mean to conceal something. And one example of a word is Khimar, the word Khimar, which has those same three root letters in Arabic. And Khimar means actually wine that people drink or whatever. It intoxicates, right? Now, how does that tie in to wine? We know that wine is an intoxicant that could cause a person to get drunk, right? And so the word Khimar means to conceal the intellect, because when you get drunk, your intellect, your right state of mind has been concealed and hijacked by the liquor that you put into your body, and it affects your mind. So it comes from those root letters. Now, in this context of the word Khimar, it is specifically talking about the head covering. So in the Quran, there's a particular ayat in Surah Nur, the light, which is the 24th surah, and it goes just a few words. It says, "Wa kulinati yakdu nami absarihinna wa yafadna firujuna wala yudina zinatahunna ila ila ma tahara minha wal yadribna bikhumar hina Allah juyu bihim wala yudina zinatahunna ila libulatihina or abai iba or abai buulatihina sadalakuddin, etc. So what is that? So what is that saying? So according to that surah, it says, "And tell the believing women to lower their gaze and guard their modesty, guard their chastity, and to not reveal their ornaments, except what normally appears. Let them draw their veils over their chests and not reveal their hidden ornaments except to their husbands, their fathers, their father-in-law, etc. Right? So why is this bringing? I mean, I was invited to do this topic. So the reality is, what is saying, it's a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we guard our modesty, especially when we're out in public, right? And this ayah is specifically talking about the women. But the ayah before that also commands the men to guard their modesty and lower their gaze too. So there's a concept of modesty amongst men too. And in the hadith, based on the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he talks about how the men are to cover from the navel to the knees, right? And also, he point out among the women parts of the body that could be exposed, talking about the face, the hands, and the feet. So the hadiths are important to understand the thoroughness of what these ayahs from the Quran are talking about. But also, too, the term Khimar, in terms of head covering, it also is related to the context of even head covering in general. Bilal ibn Rabah al-Habashi, radiyallahu anhu, when he described how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was doing wudu, he described how when he was doing wudu, he was wiping the water over his turban. And when he was talking about that specifically, he was using the word khimar in that context too. And also, when you go back to that ayat that I was just explaining to you, you also hear the word zina tahuna, which means adornments, right? Adornments. And you probably have heard this word several times. You hear the word zina in there, correct? And what does zina, now I want to ask the young people, what does zina mean? What do you hear when you hear the word zina? Right?
It's like adultery.
Yeah, illicit relations outside of nikah or marriage, right? So when you hear that, the adornments, if she exposes whatever part of the body that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to cover, right? Then what does that could possibly lead to? Zina, right? So there is a tie in that word between zina and the concept of zina tahuna. And also Aisha radiyallahu anha, may Allah be pleased with her, Aisha bin Abu Bakr, who was one of the foremost scholars and has written some of the most potent hadiths, right? The wife of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She mentions how she said she could not find a better example of women who follow that ayah more than the women of Ansar. Because she said that when the women of Ansar heard this ayah, soon as they heard that, as soon as their husbands, their brothers told them about this ayah, what did the women do? They took their waistbands, they ripped them up and covered themselves as soon as they heard that ayah. In other words, what she was saying, they didn't hesitate to do what was commanded. So that's why the people called the Ansars, the Ansaris, is special, right? And you guys, most of you, have this last name.
Yes, Alhamdulillah.
You have this last name. So you should be following that legacy. You are descendants of that last name. This is an awesome legacy that you guys are coming from. And because what does Ansar mean? Those who help, the helpers, right? And they were helping the mujahideen, the people who were coming from Mecca to Medina, right? Alhamdulillah. Okay, but I only was commanded to do like 5 minutes. I would love to go on, inshallah. But you know, if you want to get me to engage more, I'll be more than happy to. But this was the limited time I was invited to do.
Jazakallah.
Just for 1 minute, how was your experience for Hajj? What came in your heart? That's I want to hear.
You know what? Alhamdulillah. You know what the biggest thing was when I was on Hajj, I up until maybe midway when we were staying in Mina, where we stayed in the tents, I was kind of confused as to whether or not I was actually there or I was actually sleeping, having this awesome dream, only to be disappointed if I woke up and was still here in America. But I'll say this: when I realized that I was actually in Mecca, was when I was calling the masjid that I normally attend for a meeting. They have meetings on Monday nights, and I was calling in, and they start their meetings at 7:30, which over in Mecca it was 2:30 in the morning. So I was calling in at 2:30 in the morning Mecca time to the Islamic community because they wanted to know about Hajj. That's when I realized I was not asleep. I was not dreaming. I was actually there. The moment I found that out, I broke down and cried. If you saw and witnessed me being so emotional like I was, you would have thought that somebody died in my family. That's how emotional I was. Because I was there. But the difference was, it was not an emotion of sadness. It was an emotion of happiness. Because ever since I took my Shahada at age 19, all I wanted to do was to eventually go to that city, go to Mecca, experience what it's like being in that area, being in that place. And I remember when we were doing Tawaf, Sharik and I, we were going around the Tawaf on the Umrah stage, right? We were doing Umrah for a couple, right? And we were able to touch the wall of the Kaaba. We were able to touch the Kaaba. We almost touched the black stone, but we couldn't. But unfortunately, we couldn't reach that black stone because they were all fighting to get to that black stone, man. It was like people fighting to go to some concert, trying to get front seats or going to the movie. That's how that was like, going to that black stone. And and another thing, doing the Jamarat, which is stoning Shaitan, right? Shaitan, as we know, is our real enemy, right? Well, I tell you what, if you ever...
Shabazz, few people who wants to leave, so let's go for them.
Okay. I just want to share these few words. So, if you guys remember, like the riots that took place in Ferguson, Missouri, and also Florida, a few other places where they had riots, you see how people were throwing rocks at the police and stuff. Well, I tell you what, it was definitely a riot when you go to Jamarat, because people are outraged at Shaitan, and we would throw 7 pebbles at Shaitan. That's how that was like. Because people would, people would sometimes stampede, try to get there, and then you try to get as close to the pillar as possible, because you don't really want to hit anybody. But you got some people that go to the extreme that want to throw rocks over people. You know, we just want to make sure we had our. I want to make sure I want to get as close to the pillar as possible, because I didn't want people. I don't want to hit people. I want to hit Shaitan. And what the Quran says, it says to hurl the truth at falsehood and knock out its brains. And that's what it means, because because Shaitan is the creator of falsehood, and here you want to kill falsehood. But overall, I pray and I make dua that if you have not made Hajj, I pray that you guys make Hajj.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.